Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great summer. I want to go through this file that I just sent out. At first, I want to go back and talk about the evolution of this file and where it started. The reason I started it 12 years ago is I wanted everyone to have a full understanding of not only all the work that the college placement staff was doing, but at the heart of it, I wanted everyone to be able to see this and feel proud about everything that we do, just as not just as a college staff, but as a school in terms of working together on getting the best possible college outcomes for our guys. So when I meet with the freshmen in orientation, the first thing I tell them is that every single thing that they do within these walls will eventually become their college presentation. All right, so I look at it as everyone in this school provides the ingredients. All right, and there's so many different ingredients. And eventually, what we do, starting in junior year and working with them throughout, is we take all these ingredients and we tell them how to cook their recipe. All right. And all the recipes are going to be different. You know, we tell them all the time that, you can have all these great things, but you can present them poorly. So what we're doing is with each student, we're giving them a customized roadmap about how they can achieve their best presentation. Okay. Um, I want to also say thank you just for all that everyone does for being the ingredients. And I want to go through this to just explain some of the finer points and try to connect it a little bit to the work that we do in college placement where I can. So if you look at this first tab, the summary and highlights, as you can see, we had 200 students that are going to college. If we had 202 that want to go to school to college, they're going to go to college. All right. The two that aren't, one has a pretty focused plan on what he wants to do, and that doesn't really require college, and the other is going to a vocational school. The rest are going to college. If you look at this line here, we had an average acceptance, an average of 7 acceptances per student. When we start, we tell students how to build lists and not just throw darts. So we tell them they should have two schools that they're well above what they're looking for, four that are in what we feel are a very solid zone, and then we have all the others that are possible for them, where they may or may not get in, and then we also, of course, have the ones that are, far reaches. But our view is always make sure that it's not just about the outcomes, but they have a good process. So a student applying to 10 schools, getting into one they really like and not getting into nine, that's a bad process. Okay. So I'm going to go on to the next tab. This is what I call the everything tab. The recruited athletes are in black. What we do a lot with them is we explain to them, you know, with early reads, will they be okay? Is this a school where they probably wouldn't get in without athletics? Is it one where they would, even if they weren't playing? So we do a lot with them on, evaluating what the early reads will be, where they stand, and that's always intriguing to them. Over here, you'll see the admit rate for each. So we're kind of seeing like, okay, how did we do across the board, student by student, depending what they value, but really seeing like, do we feel like they achieved in the realm of what they should have, selectivity wise. This ED tab is early decision. There are going to be students here that are admitted in early decision, and they probably would have been admitted in any other pool of applicants. There are some that if they didn't do early decision, they probably wouldn't have gotten admitted. So there is a lot of strategy involved in it. Over here, you have the programs, and there's another tab where we talk about different program buckets, but this gives you more specifically what each student wanted. And for every student, we have every single outcome they got. So you can almost see, all right, what did the student value? Did they go to this school or that one? Okay. So this is kind of like the everything tab. And if you look down, what's kind of carries through this report is we always separate it by quartile. All right. So this is our first quartile and where it ends at 4.53. Okay, and these GPAs are as of the end of junior year because they start to apply before the end of senior year, obviously. So you'll see lines down here, delineations of quartile. All right. For top admit by acceptance rate, this tab I always look at is, you know, did we do the student justice? How did they do overall? So if you look at our first, quartile, you're going to see the who's who of obviously the most competitive schools in the country. But what I think is one of the biggest strengths of what we do at the prep is we advise a student, I don't want to say fiercely, we advocate for them whether their top choice is Quinnipiac or Yale, so we're always trying to get the best that we can per student. So if you look down, all right, it again, it's quartile one, quartile two, quartile three, and when you go down into each of these, you're going to go into quartile three and four and say, "Wow, like this is great." These guys are getting into some really great schools, and they're in our maybe they're in our top 65%, top 80%. So that I think is one of the biggest strengths, of the prep across the board is we're getting students in the third quartile into highly selective schools. So this notable admit section kind of shows you that. Okay. This is pretty straightforward. It's just how many students attended each individual college. All right. This is the accepts. I've always said attendance is more about what a family values. What our job is to try to get them the best possible outcomes, and then they can decide what a value is. So we care a lot more here about acceptances than attendances because we want to see kind of what the student access. We also want to see individually school to school how we're doing. So that's important. For geography, you're going to see a trend over here. The South is picking up a lot of steam. And the other thing is there's a term out there, ESPN schools, where we have a lot of students and a lot of them are coming in saying, I want to go to the South and I want to go to a mid-sized large school where they have football and all that stuff. That's always, going to be more coveted, to be honest, for our students than the, small liberal arts college. And right now, it's very popular overall. So if you look over here, the Mid Atlantic is still really strong, in terms of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and then if you look at places like the South, that's crept up a lot over the years. Okay, all right, so that gives you kind of like the attendance by region, and each of the states are over here. For field of study, I think for educators and for everyone involved, this is one of the most intriguing tabs because you can see what our students actually want to study. So if you think about it, in terms of independent studies and you look at the different electives that we offer and programs, are we addressing, what the students want, overall? Are we allowing them to have those gateways to kind of explore, all right? And then, of course, when it comes down to prospects, how are we looking across our competitors and what they offer for their students versus ours? So this is a really important area if you're kind of looking at curriculum and what we do and things like that. So obviously, business and economics are pretty dominant. That's the majority of the class. And I can tell you a lot of these students that are going into economics, they fully intend to or are thinking about studying something in finance or something in the business world one day. Maybe it's their college doesn't even offer it. Okay, that's the best that they could do or the closest they could get to it. All right, there's some notes down here that you could take a look at about how these buckets are made. All right, to finish it off, this tab, um, I gave this actually over to Z in admissions the other day, and our students are accessing the most competitive schools in the country every single year, and we've only had to work harder and harder since 2018 and 2019 to do this. All right, we've had to be more creative. We've had to evolve with it. I think the staffs and the schools that have kind of pressed against it and haven't wanted to evolve, they've struggled a lot more with it. Where we've always been understood that these are trends and we really can't fight them. Application counts have surged, selectivities have gone down, and the space is not changing at a lot of these colleges. So if you have more quality applicants and the space is the same, that leaves more students out of favor. So we've had to be very crafty and creative about how we do it. But if you can see in this tab over the last 4 years, our students are still accessing the most competitive schools in the country, and a lot of these are annual, where it's multiple students. This is just a straw poll of kind of like the who's who of the most competitive schools in the country. And I know anecdotally, all of you have talked to students that are going to these schools. So I know this is a little lengthy of a video, but I hope it gives you more insight into kind of how this class all shook out. I was really, really, really proud of not just them as a class, but overall every single one of our college counselors and the work that they did. And of course, you all providing all the ingredients that were necessary so we could filter them into great presentations and then be really proud of everything that they accomplished. So hope everybody enjoys the rest of their summer, and I hope this video is helpful. And as always, HZF.